Okay, continuing on here, this is Unit 2, Day 7, Part 2. Kind of got cut off with example 56. Okay, so we were given this piecewise function. Be careful, pay attention to the domain. I talked about this at the end of the last video, where because it says x is less than 2, you don't include the value of 2. So on the graph, you're going to have an open circle at 2, okay? All right, now the next domain for this specific piecewise says x has to be greater than or equal to 2. So it's going to be anything from 2 and up, you would apply that function there. All right, part A, find the x-intercepts. X-intercepts means let y equal 0. Okay, so if you go to the original equations up here, you were given 5 minus x. We usually have it set equal to y. So just let the y equal 0, and now you're going to solve for x. Well, for me, I would just add this x to the other side, and I'm left with x equals 5. Okay? I'm going to do the same thing for the other function that's given. So pretend it says y equals 1/2 x plus 2. Substitute in a 0 for the y, and now solve for x. So I subtract 2 to both sides, and I'm left with this. Now to get rid of 1/2, I multiply both sides by 2, and I'm left with x equals -4. So I have two x-intercepts, according to the algebra here. You're going to see something in a minute, of x equals -4 and x equals 5. Okay? All right. Part B, graph this piecewise function below. Okay, so I'm just going to pick some values here. And when x is less than 2, so let's start with 1. I'm going to plug it in here. And 5 minus 1, I get 4. So when I plugged in a 1, I got out a 4. So that's the 0.14. I put it up. Okay? Now watch, guys. That has a slope of -1, which would normally mean down 1 over 1. But if I reverse that, I'm going to get points like this. Okay? If you're not sure what's going on right now, just start picking different values. So pick 0, okay? Because I'm going to get these points over here. So when I plug in a 0, it's 5 minus 0, it's 5. There's my 0.05. Okay, if I plug in -1, 5 minus a -1 would become 5 plus 1, which is 6. So there's -1, 6. Okay, the only thing that's hard here, it's very confusing. You still have to graph 2. It would just be an open circle. So when I plug in a 2, it's 5 minus 2 is 3. So over at 2, I go up 3. But technically, it would be an open circle, okay, because 2 is not included. But watch what happens. When I come down here to this domain, x is greater than or equal to 2. So let's try plugging in 2. Half of 2 would be 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. I get the 0.23. I shade it in because it is included. So it's kind of like the not included from this previous one makes it included in the second one, and it kind of just undoes itself. So that is definitely filled in and included on that circle now, when originally it was not included and it was open. All right, so now I'm going to pick some nice even numbers. Yeah, you could go to 3, but you end up with a decimal. So I'm going to pick 4. Half of 4 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4, so I get the 0.44. Okay, watch that. It's a slope of up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. Okay, why does that make sense? Look, here's my slope. It's a half. Okay, part C. Why does your graph contradict the answers you found in part B? Well, I think it means part A. That's supposed to say in part A. That's a typo. Why does your graph contradict the answers you found in part A? Okay, so now part A, we said our x-intercepts were 5 and -4, and if you guys look, according to this, we have no x-intercepts crossing over. Why is that happening? Because the x-intercepts are not in the domain for each individual piece. Okay, what does that mean? So when x is 5, okay, when x is 5, it did not fall in that domain over here. Okay, so the x-intercepts are not in the domain for each individual piece. Oops, I spelled that wrong. last example here, and this is it for Unit 2. For the piecewise linear function, and it gives the specific domains and their functions there, find all solutions to the equation. So remember, guys, this is like saying, right there, y is 1. Okay? So imagine you had that first equation here. You would have y equals negative 2x plus 10. Okay? It wants you to let y be 1. So 1 equals negative 2x plus 10. You're going to solve for x, and you're going to get that x is equal to 4.5. Now what you have to do is you're going to take that answer. So take 4.5. You're going to come up here to the equation that we just substituted in, and x has to be strictly less than 0. Well, 4.5 is not less than 0, so no, this is not in the domain. Okay, and if you just want to put in parentheses, the domain had to be, x had to be less than or equal to 0, and our 4.5 is not less than or equal to 0. Okay, so it says find all solutions, so that's not a solution. Okay, 4.5 is not a solution to that equation. All right, we're going to do the same thing for the second equation. So the second one right here would say 5x minus 1. Again, you're going to substitute in a 1 for y, and then solve for x. When you solve this for x, you end up getting 2/5, which for me is easier to look at 0.4, and that's x. Now if you go back up to this domain, it says x is greater than 0. Well, 0.4 is greater than 0, so yes, it's in the domain. Okay, so it is a solution because 0.4 is greater than 0.